Okay, so you want to own a casino. Neon lights, a marquee with your name on it, and a floor full of people voluntarily handing you their money for the privilege of losing it. You picture the house edge working for you every single second, a mathematical certainty that guarantees you win in the long run, no matter what happens on any individual spin or hand. Free drinks, comped rooms, high rollers flying in on private jets just to lose fortunes at your Baccarat tables. Sounds simple. It is not simple. Here's what nobody tells you before you build one of these buildings. The house edge is real, but it is nowhere near as reliable as you think, because a casino's monthly revenue can swing by hundreds of millions of dollars purely on the luck of a few dozen high rollers. And the most expensive casino ever built in one American city closed after losing money every single day it was open. So let us take apart what actually happens when you own a casino.
Let us start with the number that should stop you before you even draw up plans. A land-based casino resort typically costs somewhere between $950 million and $4 billion to build. And the most expensive properties in the world blow past even that ceiling. A 4-story regional casino runs $100 million to $250 million, while a full mega resort with 5 stories or more, the kind you see on the Las Vegas Strip, lands anywhere from $250 million to $1.5 billion. Break that down per hotel room, and you are looking at $150,000 to $500,000 for a standard room, climbing well past that for suites with premium finishes and integrated smart technology. And notice something important buried in that number. This is fundamentally a hotel construction budget wearing a casino's marketing, because the rooms, not the gaming floor, are what actually eat most of the capital. Then there's the gaming floor itself, which sounds like the expensive part, but is often the cheapest square footage in the entire building. A professional blackjack or roulette table costs only $10,000 to $15,000 to purchase outright. And in Nevada, many slot machines are not purchased at all. They are placed on a revenue split where the manufacturer keeps 20% of the machine's profit and the casino keeps 80%, meaning the casino never even owns a huge portion of its own gaming floor. But here is where the invisible engineering costs return with a vengeance: licensing. A single casino operator license application in states like Maine runs $225,000 just to apply, on top of a $100,000 initial fee per gaming table for a 20-year privilege to operate it. In Pennsylvania, a standalone casino category license runs $50 million, and in New York, initial licensing fees for a full casino operation have run between $20 million and $50 million, none of which buys a single slot machine or a single hotel room. It simply buys you the legal right to open the doors. Add HVAC and electrical infrastructure that regulators will not let you skip, typically several million dollars on a large property, and add specialized surveillance and security systems mandated by gaming boards in every jurisdiction, and the invisible guts of a casino cost more than most entire small businesses will ever spend in their lifetime. And notice what all of this spending is actually protecting against. Every camera angle on that surveillance system, every fireproofing standard in that construction budget, every background check run on every employee before licensing exists because a casino is, at its core, a building designed to hold enormous sums of cash and even larger sums of credit obligations under one roof, 24 hours a day, with thousands of strangers walking through it. Regulators do not treat this like a restaurant license or a retail permit. They treat it closer to a banking charter, because in a very real sense, that is what a casino floor becomes once the chips start moving. That is also why the licensing process itself, not just the fee, can take 10 to 16 months of investigation before a single card gets dealt, during which construction debt keeps accruing interest with zero revenue coming in to offset it.
So the doors are open, the marquee is lit, and now the daily grind of keeping a building this size running begins. Because a casino carries some of the heaviest fixed costs of any building type in commercial real estate. This is operating leverage in its most extreme form. Payroll alone is staggering because unlike a golf course or a gym, a casino floor cannot run itself. It needs dealers on every table, security watching every camera angle, cashiers, hosts, and an entire hospitality staff running the hotel rooms, restaurants, and entertainment venues layered on top of the gaming operation. Energy costs run relentlessly as well, because a casino floor has no clock. The lights stay on 24 hours a day, the climate control never shuts off, and the building itself, in the case of the most notorious failure in the industry, can include a dedicated power plant that costs well over $100 million just to keep the air conditioning running.
And then there is the cost that almost no other industry has to budget for at this scale: comps and reinvestment. Casinos routinely give away free rooms, free meals, free drinks, and free show tickets to keep players on the floor. And the industry tracks this so closely that a comp ratio above 40% of a player's theoretical value is considered buying volume you cannot actually afford, while a ratio below 28% risks losing your best players to a competitor down the street. None of this spending is optional in a competitive market, and none of it pauses because a slow Tuesday night rolled around. The dealers are still paid, the lights are still on, the comp program is still running, and the regulatory compliance staff required by your gaming license is still on payroll, whether the floor is packed or completely empty. Insurance adds another layer few outsiders think about, because a building holding this much cash, this much liability exposure from alcohol service, and this much foot traffic around gaming equipment carries premiums that dwarf a typical hotel of the same size. Layer on top of that, the compliance staff required to satisfy anti-money laundering rules, since every casino above a certain size has to file currency transaction reports and maintain a surveillance and reporting apparatus that functions almost like an internal bank examiner's office, permanently on the payroll, permanently watching. This is the part of casino economics that never shows up on the marketing brochure. An entire second workforce whose only job is proving to regulators that the first workforce is behaving honestly. So, how does a casino actually make its money, given how enormous these fixed costs are? This is the popcorn business moment, and it might be the most extreme version of it in this entire genre of business, because the vast majority of people walking onto your casino floor are not actually your profit engine. Industry data shows that roughly 20% of players drive about 80% of total winnings, and at the table games specifically, high rollers make up only around 13% of visitors, while generating an estimated 88% of table game revenue. Some of these players, the true whales, will bet up to $250,000 on a single hand of Baccarat. Meanwhile, the other 87% of your table game customers, the tourists playing $5 and $10 hands, the bus tour groups, the budget travelers chasing $5 margaritas, are barely profitable on their own. They exist primarily to fill the room with energy and foot traffic that makes the property feel alive. And the industry itself has been quietly restructuring around this reality for decades. On the Las Vegas Strip specifically, gaming win has collapsed from 59% of total property revenue down to just 35%, with rooms, dining, nightlife, and retail absorbing that difference. Statewide in Nevada, gaming revenue fell from 62% of the total down to 43% over the same span. In other words, the gambling floor that gives the entire building its name and its legal license to exist has become almost a loss leader for the hotel, the restaurants, and the entertainment venues surrounding it, the same way a golf course sells real estate or a gym sells the January fantasy. Why would an owner accept an arrangement where the namesake product generates a shrinking share of revenue? Because that gaming floor is still what pulls people through the front door in the first place. And once they are inside, the room rate, the dinner check, and the nightclub cover charge do the real work of turning a profit. Now, here is the trap door under the floor, and it is baked directly into the mathematics of the business itself. Variance. A casino's house edge is a long-run statistical guarantee, not a guarantee on any given month. And the more concentrated your revenue is on a small number of high-stakes players, the more violently your actual monthly results can swing away from that theoretical average. Baccarat is the clearest example of this in the entire industry because it is the preferred game of the exact whales casinos fight hardest to attract. And in one recent month, the Baccarat hold rate, meaning the share of total money wagered that the casino actually kept, collapsed to roughly 13%, down from nearly 27% the year before. That single swing, on a game that generates well over $1 billion a year on the Strip alone, is enough to drag an entire property's monthly earnings report up or down, regardless of how many total visitors walked through the doors. This is a risk no casino operator actually controls, because you cannot manage away a run of bad luck against a handful of players betting 6 figures a hand. You can only survive it with enough of a cash reserve and a low enough debt load to absorb a genuinely unlucky month without missing a debt service payment. There is a second version of this same trap that compounds the first one, and it is regulatory dependency. Your entire right to operate rests on a license that a state gaming board can renew, restrict, or in the most extreme cases, revoke. And the tax rate levied on your gaming revenue is set entirely by political processes you have no vote in, ranging from single digits in some states to well above 40% in others. A jurisdiction can also simply approve a competing license 2 hours down the highway, instantly fragmenting a customer base you spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars cultivating. Combine variance on your highest value customers with a regulatory environment that can change the rules of the game at any point, and you begin to see why so few industries carry this much exposure to forces sitting entirely outside management's control. Let us talk about Revel Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Conceived before the financial crisis as the crown jewel of a plan to bring Las Vegas quality gambling to a struggling seaside market, Revel cost $2.4 billion to build, becoming the tallest building in Atlantic City and, at the time, the single most expensive failure in the city's history. Its original backer, Morgan Stanley, pulled out of the project entirely and walked away from $932 million already invested, forcing New Jersey's governor to step in with a $261 million tax incentive package just to get the building finished. When Revel finally opened its doors in April 2012, its casino floor brought in only $13 million in its very first month, placing it near the bottom of Atlantic City's already declining gambling market. The property never turned a profit in its entire operating history. Revel filed for bankruptcy protection twice in barely 2 years, losing an estimated $260 million during that span, including $22 million lost in a single quarter of 2014. Buried underneath the financial collapse was a physical trap of its own. A dedicated power plant that cost roughly $129 million to build, in which continued billing the property for energy regardless of occupancy, eventually scaring away potential buyers who wanted the casino without inheriting that utility obligation. With weekly losses exceeding $1 million and no buyer willing to keep it running as a casino, Revel shut its doors permanently in September 2014, just over 2 years after opening, laying off more than 3,100 employees. The building was eventually sold at auction for $110 million, a fraction of the $2.4 billion it cost to build. The lesson is not that casinos cannot make money.
The lesson is that a casino built on maximum leverage, misjudging its own customer base, and carrying fixed infrastructure costs that never pause can burn through more than $2 billion of value in under 2.5 years. Let us run the numbers on a mid-sized regional casino. Optimistic scenario against realistic bad year. In the optimistic scenario, your property generates steady gaming win alongside growing non-gaming revenue from rooms, dining, and entertainment. Your comp ratio sits in the disciplined low 30s range that keeps your best players loyal without overspending, and your Baccarat and high roller table hold rates land close to their long-run theoretical average. On a construction investment in the several $100 million range, a property performing to expectations can post a net profit margin in the 15 to 20% range and reach payback within 8 to 12 years, a long horizon but a survivable one for patient capital. Now the realistic bad year. A cluster of high rollers has an unusually lucky run at your Baccarat tables, and your hold rate on that single game collapses from its normal high 20s% down into the low teens, taking a meaningful chunk of monthly gaming revenue with it. At the same time, a new competing property opens 2 hours away and starts undercutting your comp offers, forcing you to raise your own comp ratio past 40% just to retain your rated players, which directly erodes your margin on every visit those players make. Energy costs climb, staffing costs climb with them because you cannot run a 24-hour gaming floor with a skeleton crew, and your fixed debt service on that original construction loan does not care about any of it. Net profit margin can compress from that comfortable 15 to 20% range down toward break-even, or in a genuinely bad stretch involving a run of high roller luck against you, into an outright quarterly loss. The difference between these two scenarios on a mid-sized property can easily swing tens of millions of dollars in a single year. And on a business already carrying 9-figure construction debt, that swing is exactly the kind of gap that turns a comfortable debt service coverage ratio into the kind of conversation Revel's lenders were having in early 2013. So, what is a casino? Once you strip away the neon and the marquee lighting, it is a machine that turns statistical certainty over millions of small bets into a business model, while quietly depending on a tiny number of enormous bets to actually move the profit needle. The mass market tourist playing $5 blackjack is not really your customer. They are your foot traffic, your energy, your justification for the license on the wall. The real business happens in the tail, in the handful of players willing to risk 6 figures on a single hand, and in the hotel rooms, restaurants, and nightclubs built to capture everyone else's spending once gambling itself has become almost secondary to the balance sheet. You are not really buying a gaming floor. You are buying a very expensive, very leveraged bet that the math holds up over a long enough timeline for the debt to get paid off before variance, competition, or a bad run of luck against your biggest players gets there first.